Let's do this. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my November monthly YouTube Live. If you're just joining for the first time, welcome. My name is Harry, and I run the Rideshare Guy. And if you're returning, thank you very much for coming back and coming live with me. So these sessions are a lot of fun, and we're going to spend about an hour basically answering all the questions that you might have. So if you're watching live right now in real time, you should see a little chat window either on the lower right-hand side. If you're on mobile, you might have to scroll up and see it. Hopefully, I'm coming in loud and clear. I see a bunch of familiar names in the chat. So hi, William, Roy. Hopefully you guys can all hear me loud and clear. Let's see if my mic is coming in. It looks like it is right now, but let me know if you guys are having any issues hearing me. I think it's coming in right now. I don't see any buttons, but looks like everything is working. So we do these monthly YouTube lives basically every single month for the past 2 or 3 years. So a lot of fun. And I'm going to go over a couple top news stories, any app updates that you guys might have questions about, and then answer all of your questions. So it looks like we've got about 25 people watching live right now. And sometimes if we're lucky, we get up to 100 or even 200 people watching live. So definitely welcome everyone. Rideshare Lisa, good to see you back. She says it's coming in loud and clear. Bits of Barrington says hello from Nashville. Logan says, who likes Lime scooters? I like scooters. So good to hear from you. Rideshare Lisa says, I just got my notification. So welcome everyone for joining. If you guys haven't given this video a thumbs up, please go ahead and do so now. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm so that other people can see it and get all of their questions answered. So it looks like we got 33 people watching, 4 thumbs up. So if you can give me a thumbs up on this video, definitely appreciate that. And also feel free to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We release new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I go live. I haven't gone live in a while since I was out of town, but I try to go live once or twice a month these days. So appreciate everyone who is joining. All right, let's get into it now that I've given everyone a little bit of time to settle. It looks like we've got Jay Crater on, one of our Rideshare Guy contributors over in the chat. So welcome, Jay, and welcome, William. Web City says Uber Eats just lowered payments big time today. So we actually did do a video recently from Elijah on the YouTube channel, who's one of our Uber Eats specialists, and he talked about the new payment structure that Uber Eats has rolled out. So that might be what you're referring to. So definitely go check out that video. Tim says, how do we thumbs up? So if you see there's a little thumbs up and a thumbs down. So right now I see that there's 17 thumbs up and 1 thumbs down. So whoever gave that thumbs down, you can go to hell. Well, just kidding. But that's how you give the thumbs up. You just click on the little thumbs up button. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think, before I start answering your questions, I do want to say, I'm curious if you guys have any questions on the news stories we've been seeing. I mean, Uber and Lyft had their earnings call last week. Nothing really jumped out to me. I saw that Travis Kalanik, Uber's old founder, sold a bunch of stock. I don't know if that's any real surprise, and he raised a bunch of money for his new company. So I haven't seen any news stories lately that have really jumped out at me. I guess the only big one was, you guys may have seen this story about Uber's new CEO, Dara Khosrowshahi, and he basically got interviewed by Axios on HBO, and he kind of made a pretty big slip up. He basically compared the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. He called it kind of like a serious mistake, and kind of compared it to a tech glitch, what happened with their self-driving car, and basically he apologized immediately after it, but he got a ton of heat in the news and things like that for that. So that's kind of what the situation is there. But I'm curious what you guys think of that, if you even care about that. I don't know. I didn't really, I guess the only thing that I sort of made me think of, is that Dara was supposed to be this new CEO that makes everything better for drivers and Uber. And I don't know. I don't know that I've seen a ton of change from Uber, especially in the past year. So I'm curious what you guys think. Douglas says, we need a new CEO. And I don't know. I think that it's more than just, the CEO is the face of the company, but I think a lot of these issues at Uber are structural. I was thinking back to, what was that, 2016, or no, I guess 2017, when Uber was doing that 180 days of change. I don't know if you guys remember this or if you were around back then, but every month they would release like 5 or 6 new features. And, some of them were definitely better than others. They started with the tipping feature. And I kind of thought that Uber was turning things around with their relationship with drivers at that point. Excuse me, but it seems like maybe not so much. It seems like that 6 months was a one-time thing. So we'll see what happens there. Guppy says we do need a $10 flat rate start for short trips, and yeah, that would definitely be nice to get higher pay on short trips. So let's go ahead and start answering your questions. And I do want to mention, if you guys stay tuned to the end of this live stream, we will be doing a little giveaway. You can see the new shirts that I'm wearing right here with our new logo. Hopefully you guys like it. I know a bunch of you helped me vote on the logo. So that the new logo and site redesign is actually coming soon. But in the meantime, we started making some swag. So we'll give out a couple t-shirts, maybe 2 or 3 new t-shirts with the new logo if you guys make it all the way to the end. William says, "Oh crap, I like it. Super nice." Yeah, and they're super soft too. I think this we get them printed on Amazon, so it's pretty cool. They can send them individually, so you guys will get a nice package if you win the giveaway at the end of this YouTube live. So, Mega Slob says, "Big topic lately has been deactivations. What's your opinion on that?" So, deactivation. So we get a ton of emails and comments from drivers. And I would say one of the top 2 or 3 things every single week is questions about deactivations, unfair deactivations. And I know that this week, a couple people had sent me a video from another YouTuber who I think does a great job, Geo at Rideshare Revolution. And it looks like, I haven't spoken with him about it, but it looks like he was actually deactivated by Uber from what he says is a false claim from a passenger. And I don't know all the details of it. I mean, I watched his video, so that's about all I know. But it definitely seems like, if someone who has a YouTube channel with a decent following and is a 4.9 star rated driver can deactivate it, really anyone can get deactivated. And this actually happened to one of our own contributors, Jay, who's in the comments right now. I mean, he has over 26 or 7,000 rides, 4.9 star rating on both Uber and Lyft. And he was also deactivated, not over a false claim, but some issue with his DMV background check that turned out to just be a clerical error. So I think the things I took away from Geo's situation is, number one, always have a dash cam in your car. I don't know. I thought that he did have a dash cam in his car, and I'm not sure if he did or not, because then you at least have evidence, right? If you get a notification the next day from Uber or Lyft that says, your passenger made an inappropriate comment and you have all that footage from a dash cam, then that is your evidence right there. Like, worst comes to worst, you can go into an Uber office and literally make them watch that footage and show you the ride where something went wrong. But I guess just in general, it brings up the issue that, this job is tenuous. Like, if Uber wanted to deactivate me tomorrow, or you tomorrow for whatever reason, they could do that, and we wouldn't really have any recourse. And, you can complain about it or bitch about it or go to a lawyer or whatever you want. But ultimately, I think it just, it should be like a little bit of a wake up call that you have to just kind of understand what the reality is and be careful out there. So, hopefully that answers your question. William says it's a big issue. Let's see. Any other comments here? Mauricio says Uber Pro here, gold level, all stats okay, 4.98 rating, 86% acceptance rate, and 3% cancellation rate. And they're not showing me the trip destination info. Called support and was told it's a known issue, no fix. That's interesting. So, I haven't really heard of that issue yet, Mauricio, but I would definitely check with other drivers in your area just so you know. I mean, if it's a known issue, I'm not sure there's a whole lot that you can do about it, but I suspect if multiple drivers are having that issue, then they will hopefully work on it and get it done. Jim says he did have a dash cam, but the footage was overwritten. That's actually a good point, that sometimes with the dash cams, if you don't have a big enough memory card in there, like what I would try to keep is at least 2 to 3 days worth of footage in your dash cam at all times, just because, you might get a report of an incident like hours or sometimes days later. So you never know. So that's kind of how I would handle that. David says, I would like to see this go to court. And I did see Gio mention in his video that he's already talking to some lawyers, so that's good. I wish him the best there. We do work with some lawyers who help drivers who have been unfairly deactivated. I was going to send him those guys, but it sounds like he's already found a lawyer. Guppy says it was a short time issue in KC, referring to that Uber Pro destination, seeing where the rider is headed. Chris says Uber doesn't care about dash cam footage, and the moles at the green light hubs can't do anything either with dash cam footage. It's kind of funny the way you phrase that, Chris. And I think you may be right there. But what I would ultimately say is that if you do have a case and you do find a lawyer that's willing to take it and you have that dash cam footage, I feel like that's when it would really come in handy. Because a lot of times I think that if you're in, what I found with not just Uber, but any businesses, if you show that you're serious enough about something, and you have like the evidence on your side. Like, so what I like to do whenever I have a lot of issues with people paying me. And so, if you've ever run a small business, it's kind of tough sometimes to get paid. And one of the first steps that you can take is if you work with a lawyer, you can actually send a demand letter. And if you guys go and look that up, that's kind of like a good first step because it makes their lawyers look at it and kind of really decide like, hey, is this something we really want to fight or not? So you can handle that. Let's see. Chris says dash cam footage is only valuable to the driver for our issues. Mark says, I know you need child seats for small children, but what about booster seats for older children? So I guess what I would think about is depending on what's legal, I think every state is actually a little bit different. And my son is 2 years old. So I'll be honest, I don't know what the legal rules are for someone above, but I know there's usually a weight limit. So if it's like 80, like Robert says, 80 pounds or less for a booster seat. So I think that you kind of have to know maybe the local regulations in your area. But honestly, I don't know if it's a huge deal. If they're like on the, it's not like what a baby looks like a toddler or an infant, right? But if they're like 70, 80, 90 pounds, I don't think that's as, how are you going to weigh them? As long as it's like within reason, I think though. But I do think like, having a booster seat and car seat, right? Especially booster seats, like for parents, if their kids are like, need a booster seat, they should definitely be bringing those along because they're really not that heavy and they don't weigh that much. So I think that's how I would handle that. GoDonnyCom says big corporations are recording you through your apps because you are giving them permission under the terms of service. I've been doing it for years. I don't know if you're saying that you've been recording people through your apps, Donnie, or that others are, but this actually, so I just read this book by Mike Isaac. I think I have it right here called Super Pumped. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this book, but we did a review of it over on the blog. So I'll leave a link if you want to check that out. I've been trying to get Mike on the podcast, so that may be happening soon, but he's a busy guy. So it's been hard to schedule with him. But the reason why I bring it up was because I remember a story in this book that was really good. I really enjoyed the book, and I think you guys should definitely check it out, buy it, rent it from the library, whatever. But there was a story in there that actually Uber was doing just that. And if I remember correctly, they were listening through the Uber drive, or they could listen through the Uber driver app to see if you were also driving for Lyft, like if they heard the noises or something like that. I don't think they actually ever went with this program, Donnie, at least according to the reporting in the book. But I think you are actually right that some apps can do that. And I bet some probably even do that. So Jay says, can I get that book on Audible? Yes, Super Pumped is available on Audible. And this actually, I don't know if you guys are into ebooks, but I'm really into ebooks, right? Or not ebooks, I guess audiobooks right now. So if you guys are interested in any of those books on audiobook, I'll leave a link right now to our Audible affiliate link because you can actually get a free audiobook. And then I think it's like 15 or 20 bucks a month or something like that. And you get a free book every month. So that's kind of a good way if you like listening to books in between rides, or sometimes I'll even like with my AirPod or Bluetooth piece, just put it in my ear, in my left ear only, and listen to stuff while I'm driving so that passengers don't have to listen to some boring audiobook and you can actually educate yourself while you're driving. So That's an opportunity. Jay says, I know Jay's a big fan of Audible. He says it's 14.95 per month. Three Tracker Yahoo says reading super pumped right now. Awesome. I'm curious to know what you think about the book. Let me know. And Tim says it's a huge problem. I turn down rides daily for no car seats. And to be honest, I don't understand how any parent could bring their like little baby in a Uber, but obviously we all know it happens. And I think that again, this is a situation where you kind of have to understand your risk and your liability. Robert says it's the responsibility of the passenger to provide the car seat and booster, and I totally agree. But at the same time, like I've talked to many drivers who actually bought a cheap booster seat on Amazon, or they have kids of their own and leave a booster seat in the back because when it comes down to it, and why drivers get put in a tough situation is if you show up and they have a baby and no car seat, you have to cancel that ride, or you have to wait. What I tell people to is wait the 5 minutes and then cancel the ride. So you get that cancellation fee, but you would rather do the trip, right? Because you're probably going to make more money usually from doing the trip, especially if it's a longer one. And, so if you don't mind carrying a little tiny booster seat in the back of your trunk, they even have blow up booster seats that I've seen on Amazon. That's kind of a good way where you can make like a small investment and it pays off over the long run for sure. So let's see. Mark says, what do you think of the new Uber beacon? So, yeah, I mean, Uber has this new beacon coming out. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'm trying to see if I don't know if I'll be able to bring up a picture of it, but basically it's a new Uber beacon. I mean, I like the look of it. I mean, I think it's always cool just in general to get like a fresh or updated look on the beacon every, I don't know, let's say every 6 to 12 months or maybe every 12 to 18 months. But it kind of reminds me actually of the Lyft amp, the new Uber beacon. So we're trying to get our hands on one so that we could test it out and review it on the YouTube channel. So I'll definitely let you know. But I feel like it is pretty convenient in certain, really busy areas. If the beacon matches the color of the phone, and the driver or the passenger can look for a certain color or whatever it might be. And I mean, I guess at LAX you used to be able to leverage the beacons, but now they have this whole other situation. Oh, that's the other big news story that I forgot to talk about. So if there are any LA drivers, I'm curious to know what your experience has been like in LA with the new lot. So William says it's like the amp. Yeah, it does. I feel like the text on the new Uber beacon is very similar to the Lyft amp. Chris says there's no cleaning fee for cleaning a car or booster seat. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why you would get a cleaning fee for a car seat or a booster seat, but kids can, I guess, make a little bit of a mess, but it is what it is. And let's see. Tim says, Harry, no driver should provide a car seat. If there is an accident, then the liability shifts to the driver because it's the driver who purchased the seat. If the passenger has the seat, they are responsible for the seat. So that's a good point. I'm not talking about providing a car seat, but I am talking about providing a booster seat. I don't know if booster seats can expire, or, I mean, booster seats, like my child doesn't need a booster seat yet, but I mean, it's pretty simple. You just stick the booster seat in and they sit on it. So I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe, if someone wants to sue you, they can, but I mean, ultimately, as long as you're not being negligent, I think that's what's important, because people can sue you for any reason, right? You can be potentially like liable for any reason, or not liable, but someone can sue you if they really want to. But I think a lot of times if they're suing you, as part of your Uber or Lyft driving, they're really going after Uber and Lyft. They don't want the driver. So as long as you weren't being negligent, I think that you're going to have a much better case, right? If you allow a baby into your car and they get into an accident and the baby, gets injured because they weren't in a car seat, yeah, I think that's your fault, or partly your fault. But if you're providing a booster seat and the passenger, didn't have the seatbelt on correctly, like, I don't know, maybe you could technically still be sued, but I feel like you did the right thing in that situation. So I don't know. I think that's where I would not have a problem doing it personally. Guppy says Fox 4 did a sting here where drivers took kids without car seats. Bad for them, but I won't do it. Yeah. And I mean, frankly, like a lot of drivers, I think, do it. And I don't think it's a very good idea. So Not something I would recommend to you, just because you never know what could go wrong, or if you get into an accident, you're definitely going to be at least partially responsible, even though they might try to sue Uber or Lyft to get the money. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Chris says, in case the passenger child makes a mess or the passenger damages it, a driver in my market had a passenger who damaged it, then took off with it because it was not part of the car. Uber couldn't charge the passenger a damage fee. So I guess I see what you're saying, right? If someone puts a car seat or a booster seat down. So I guess if you have like really nice leather seats, then you probably shouldn't be, putting a car seat directly onto it. So that makes sense. But I feel like most drivers, frankly, like don't have, you've got like, you probably don't have leather seats, probably have cloth, or you have a car seat cover, or maybe even just keep a towel in the back of your car, like I do. If you got I'm here in LA, so if I ever have passengers and I pick them up at the beach, I always throw a towel down really quickly. So, a lot of these things, like, frankly, this is the passenger's responsibility, but at the same time, you kind of want to put yourself in the best position to succeed, right? If you're driving in the summer in Santa Monica and you're picking up all these people from the beach and your car is getting sandy, and you're asking Uber and Lyft for a cleaning fee, or your next passengers are complaining because the seats are wet, like, you got to take some responsibility yourself and say, hey, I'm driving in the summer near the beach. Probably I'm going to be picking up a lot of people that are wet, and put a towel down, or or have car seat covers that can easily be cleaned. Because even though technically maybe it's not your responsibility, that actually is going to help you get more trips and not have to cancel trips and make more money. So just be smart about that. Jason says the Uber and Lyft give no training on car seats or unaccompanied minors, and they don't care at all. Yeah, I mean, frankly, this is actually a big issue that I have with Uber and Lyft. I think in a lot of cases, they shift the risk and liability onto drivers to figure out, if you're a brand new driver and you're trying to figure out how the app works, you get a request for a minor, you may not even know that it's against Uber and Lyft's terms of service and do that ride anyway. So that's a big problem that I have with Uber and Lyft's policy on this. Sup Shady says, I saw some article that Uber has insurance. Uber's insurance was dropping them soon. Did you hear anything about that? Just out of curiosity. Yeah, so we did do an article on James Rivers Insurance, and they're actually dropping Uber, I believe, at the end of the year. I don't know that this means a ton for drivers, other than basically, if you get into an accident while driving for Uber, then you would no longer be dealing with James Rivers. You're going to be dealing with another company. I think that they started working with Progressive and Allstate and Farmers and some others. So I feel like, if anything, this story could be a good thing for drivers. I'll leave a link to the article we wrote about James River Insurance dropping Uber. And this is also, I guess, just in general, like a good reminder that if you guys don't have rideshare insurance yet, definitely at least get a few quotes so you can see how much it would cost you. I'll leave a link to our marketplace right there. Jay asks, has anyone gone through Lyft's 20-minute safety training program? What did you think? Lisa says, I did, Jay, and a couple other people said yes. And I know Jay is actually working on an article and a video about this, so stay tuned. I'm curious to know, Jay, what you thought about that. I know, Jay, you said that, or I don't know. I know when I saw that training video, I was like, man, I feel like we should be, if this is mandatory, I feel like we should be paid for this. It doesn't really seem like, I wasn't aware you can require independent contractors to take that training, but that's just my 2 cents. Mauricio says, I started it, Jay. It's good for people with no common sense. And I think someone else said, oh yeah, B-Dye said, Lyft video should also be geared towards passengers. I think that's, smart. I don't know. This is one big issue that I have with a lot of these safety stories lately. A lot of these stories in the media are talking about how drivers are doing bad things to passengers, but I'm sure you guys understand, I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, but like when you're a driver and you're pulling up to a dark alley at 2 or 3 a.m. and you look down at the app and you see a passenger with an obvious fake name and there's no maybe not even a profile picture, that's a lot scarier than, for what passengers have to do of getting into a car. They at least see the driver, they see the rating, they know there's been some type of background check. I don't know. I feel like it's actually a lot safer for riders than it is for drivers. But for whatever reason, a lot of the stories in the media seem to kind of like harp on that drivers attacking passenger type narrative. But excuse me, whatever. It is what it is. Sorry, I woke up this morning with a little bit of a sore throat, but I'm powering through it for you guys. And I got my emergency right here, trying to stay healthy. So Jeff says, I got $5 after completing the training and five-star rides. Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Maybe I didn't see that. So that's, I don't know if it's quite worth your time, $5 for 20 or 30 minutes, but it definitely is better than nothing. Chris says, James Rivers really knew how to send the driver up the river. So that's a good dad joke. And Francisco says, I won't take the Lyft course unless I am paid for my time. Well, it sounds like you're paid $5 for your time as long as you do five-star trips after your next five-star rides. I mean, I guess it is better than nothing, but still not a ton of money. That might be a good thing for Jay for us to add to our article. William says it's always the driver. Hannah says, did you hear anything about the protests at Garrett Camp's house? So I know that I believe it was last week, I think Gig Workers Rising and Rideshare Drivers United, both of whom we've actually had representatives. I had Nicole Moore from Rideshare Drivers United on my podcast. Jay had a representative from Gig Workers Rising on his podcast, the Rideshare Dojo, which you guys should definitely check out if you haven't seen that yet. And it sounds like those two groups, or I don't know, some combination of the groups, organized some protests. I know there was a protest at Garrett Camp's house in LA. I think he just bought some huge mega mansion. And Bill Gurley, who's one of Uber's big investors, at his house up in the Bay Area. I think he lives in Atherton, I think is what the city is called. But I saw some pictures from it, but it didn't really seem like it got a ton of media attention. I'm a little surprised. I know that, we've kind of covered, there was this big, I think it was back in March, that there was this big Uber protest that got a lot of media. And then I went to this protest at LAX a few months later. But it seems like a lot of the protesting has kind of died down. And I mean, I guess drivers, those drivers all kind of won because AB5 passed, but it does seem like, it's kind of hard to sustain that momentum, right, for those groups that are protesting and, trying to get drivers onboarded. So I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about these groups that are trying to organize drivers, but Go Donnie says 30 million drivers worldwide, just as many passengers. Everybody's going to have bad apples. So many drivers, so many passengers. It is what it is. Come on, man. Yeah, I don't know if there's 30 million drivers worldwide. I think there's probably maybe a few million, but I get what you're saying is that, Uber and Lyft are doing millions of rides a day. And of course, some small things are going to go wrong. But I do think that there's more that both Uber and Lyft could be doing. Everything from kind of just ensuring, maybe even like ensuring that all passengers have to have a picture, or all passengers have to have a real name, or their driver license needs to be verified, or, just ensuring that they're over the age of 18. I think there actually is a lot of pretty small stuff that Uber and Lyft can do. And what I've found is that they take a much more reactive approach. Like they wait until, something goes wrong, or they get kind of like blamed in the media, or they get, like bashed upon in the media. And then they change things, right? So I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about that. Go Donnie says, if you don't complete the Lyft training, you won't be able to drive if you don't do it by December 15th. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Like, I feel like that's just like a lawsuit waiting to happen if Lyft deactivates a driver for not doing the training. So I don't know. Maybe I should. I haven't done the training yet myself. So maybe I won't do it and see if Lyft deactivates me. That could be a good story, actually. So we'll see. Chris says, at least Lyft is trying to do something about the issues. And Tim says, the safety education is required to continue driving per the blurb in the app. Yeah. So Jay asked, any thoughts on Travis Kalanik selling so much of his Uber stock? So yeah, I saw this story the other day that came through, and basically, when Uber IPO'd 6 months ago, all of the stockholders had to hold their stock, like all the early employees and investors had to hold their stock for 6 months. And basically, that lockup period expired just last week. So Travis Kalanik sold 20% of his stake in Uber, which was worth about $547 million, which is obviously a lot. And that was only 20% of his stake. So I mean, I think that, I don't know, it is what it is, like definitely he deserves some credit and some money for starting the company. But at the same time, like obviously we've covered many times, like how unfair it is, the drivers are basically getting nothing. And, a lot of the early investors and early employees are really cashing out. I mean, I think it's definitely fair that, if you go out and start a company like Uber, you should definitely get paid a lot of money for it. So I don't know that it's unfair that he got paid, but I guess we can all argue about how much more he should have made. But, I mean, I think if anything, it motivates me to go start my own company. I think if I did it, though, I guess what I would say is that, he's cashing out 550 million times, and that's 20%, right? So he's like a multi-billionaire. Like, I guess for me, I don't see why some of these guys can't do the same thing, but just like not quite be so shady or not be quite such terrible people. Like why can't they just like, cut that back in half? And my hope is, like instead of making multi-billions, maybe he makes 500 million or $1 billion, right? But he's treating drivers better. He's treating, in the book Super Pumped, it talks a lot about how, Uber, it wasn't the greatest place for drivers, but also it sounds like it wasn't the greatest place to work at for a lot of the employees either. There was a lot of sexual harassment and sort of, a bunch of other issues in the book Super Pumped. So you guys can definitely, if you're interested in that, I would recommend reading that book so you can learn a little bit more about what it was like on the inside. Chris says, do we forget the drivers are not in control of anything here? We're not even in charge of the ride. Passengers can cry wolf easily and drivers don't have a voice, and drivers are not in control at all. And I think, unfortunately, that is correct, Chris. So I think that's why a lot of my advice is like, hey, we can bitch and complain about a lot of different things, but ultimately you really want to worry about the things you can control. If you feel so strongly that, drivers are being treated unfairly and your income is depending on it, your family, right? There's organizations that you can join. And, that's like one of the things I've said about some of these organizations like Rideshare Drivers United and Gig Workers Rising. I don't agree with all of what they say, but I mean, at least to their credit, they're like out there fighting and supporting the things that they really believe in. Tim says, always have a plan B. So it sounds like you've been watching Jay's videos. I know Jay is big on having a plan B. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And one of the cool things I'm excited about, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent, is we're going to be creating a lot of content in the upcoming year that actually will help you guys with that plan B. So whether you want to transition into more professional driving jobs, truck driving, chauffeur, limo, whatever, or just going out and being more entrepreneurial stuff, we've got a lot of content that, because I think there's so much that being an Uber and Lyft driver helps you practice customer service, running your own business and all that, we're starting to create a lot of content that will help you transition into something else. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Robert says, good question. I'm not sure which question you're referring to, but Hannah says, Super Pump says Kalanick had an infatuation with Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. Lucy says, Harry, what's your take on third-party riders? I would rather not pick up these riders because I don't know who is actually in my car if anything goes wrong. So, Lucy, this is a question that, it's funny because I feel like, I don't know, for whatever reason in LA, like people are always calling rides for other people. And, sometimes it's kind of the booty call, whatever. You've probably, I don't know if that actually is what's happening, but drivers like to joke about that. But basically what Lucy is talking about is what happens when you get a ride request. Let's say it's Alan, but, a young lady walks out and, maybe Alan called the ride for this person. So I think that I usually don't have a problem with it unless something feels a little bit off, right? Like if, I've had rides where, Alan requested the ride and said, hey, by the way, you're taking my girlfriend, back to her house. Okay, no problem. I don't really see an issue there. But I do think it's important to sort of like understand that ahead of time, right? So if you're expecting Alan and a young lady gets into the car, maybe my advice would just be to get the backstory. Like, why is this young lady getting in the car when you're expecting Alan and there's a picture of some white guy, right? right? So that would be my advice, because I understand what you're saying, Lucy, right? Like, what if something goes wrong mid trip, or what if the person who called the ride cancels the ride mid trip, and then now you've got a passenger in your back seat and they're like, I don't know why they canceled it. I don't know what's going on, right? You kind of want to be prepared for that situation. So if you had talked to them already and just said that, hey, and she, the rider told you like, yeah, my friend called this ride for me. You said, okay, that's no problem. I can take you there, as long as they leave the trip active, for example, right? Then you kind of avoid that. So you sort of want to like think about it one step ahead and what might go wrong. So that's kind of what a third party rider is. James says 1/3 of my rides are third-party riders. That's a lot. I don't know if 1/3, if that's ever happened to me, but that's definitely a lot. So I'm curious to know then how you guys handle that situation. Steven said, oh yeah, so this is a good example. Steven says go grandparent. So we actually did an article on this service called Go Grandparent, and basically it's a service that they work with TNCs like Uber and Lyft to call rides for elderly people or people going to the hospital or something like that. But you can kind of guess from the name, it's for elderly people. That's why it's called Go Grandparent. And so I'll leave a link to this article that we did, because I like the way that they do it. Basically, they just give you a little bit of a heads up for the driver. And I mean, there may be a little bit of extra work for the driver on those Go Grandparent rides, but so we've got a little bit of an experience there. So if you guys are curious how that Go Grandparent service works, I'll leave a link to that and you can check that out. Jim says, why do Uber and Lyft limit destination trips? So as you guys know, Uber, it limits you to 2, and Lyft was at 6 and dropped drivers, or at 5 or 6, right? 6 and dropped you back down to 2. And a lot of drivers were pissed about this. I know Jay actually did an article and a video on this. And basically what Lyft said was that not that many drivers were using those extra destination filters. And we kind of call bullshit on that reason, because if not that many drivers are using it, then why are they getting rid of it, right? It doesn't really make sense to get rid of something if it wasn't causing that much of an issue, because you're just going to piss the people off who were using it. So I don't know that I have the best answer, but if I had to guess, I think it's because when drivers use destination filters, now the available supply of drivers kind of goes down, right? Because if you can only go one direction, now any ride that you would have taken in the past, the other direction, Lyft can't assign that to a rider. And maybe it increases ETAs, for example, right? So I'm assuming that's why they did it, but I do think that they really shot themselves in the foot with that move. Jay says, I get one of those per week, a Go Grandparent ride, but they never tip. So this is one of the issues I have with Go Grandparent. And, because sometimes they might be a little elderly, you might want to have to take a little extra care of them. They might be a little tougher to find, and they don't tip, right? Because it's through this third-party service, Go Grandparent. So that's definitely an issue I have with that. But it's also similarly like, if you guys have ever delivered food, like when I order takeout myself, if they do a good job at the counter and they're helpful or nice or whatever, I usually leave them a few bucks tip. But when you're ordering food through Postmates or DoorDash, right, you tip the courier, but you're not tipping the takeout person at the restaurants. I know a lot of the takeout people at the restaurants are not big fans of Postmates and DoorDash for that reason. Online with Air Jordan says, the easiest third-party drives are packages. So I actually totally agree. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten a request for what I call a package, right? So this is when basically a rider wants you to transport a package or a wallet or someone needs something, right, and they use Uber to do it. So we actually have a good article about this. I'm trying to think what it was called. We called it Driving Boxes for Uber, that has some tips and sort of how to handle that type of situation, because you don't want to show up at the destination of this package and then no one's there, and then you're like, all right, what the hell do I do with this 12 by 12 by 12 box? I don't know what's in it and what's going on. So you do want to make sure that you kind of know at least a little bit what you're doing. Guppy says, I love Go Grandparent rides. I'd rather drive them than normal passengers. And yeah, I think I've actually, like, one of my favorite rides ever was with this guy who was like 82, and I think his nephew had installed the Uber app. He barely knew how to get the ride, and I had to call him to find him. But it was just his story was really cool, and he was going out to meet his friends at the age of 82, like for a nice lunch. And I feel like without Uber, he would have never been able to make that ride in the past. So I guess that's one of the benefits that you get from driving. The Joker says, my go-go grandparent rides usually tip me in cash. Well, that is definitely nice. And Jay says, yeah, that does happen once in a while. And Jeff says, who knows what's in that package? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess you take some risk, but I mean, I don't know that there's too many issues there as long as you're driving safe. I don't think anyone's going to put a bomb in your car. But Guppy says, I had an old folks home, send me to CVS, pick up meds, and bring them back to them. Good thing I am honest. That's interesting. I've never had anything like that happen to me. Jay says the best part of being a taxi driver, Jay actually drove a taxi for a couple weeks as an experiment. He said was many of the passengers are seniors, very chatty and friendly. Yeah, definitely the seniors love to talk. They love to chat. So that's kind of one of the nice things there. All right, let's see. If I haven't, we're kind of coming up on the end. We'll go for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. I know we got up over 100 people watching live. So thank you guys, everyone who is joining. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, let me take a quick pause. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. I see we have 100 people watching live, but only 34 likes. So either you guys are busy driving or you don't like the stream. But if you are enjoying the stream, definitely go ahead and give me a thumbs up, because that helps with the YouTube algorithm and make sure that other drivers can see all of this information. And like I said, we'll do a little giveaway of this shirt in 5 or 10 minutes. So if you guys are watching live, you'll have a chance to enter and win a shirt in my giveaway. And if you're not watching live, just make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you'll get a little notification when we go live. Usually it's every month, sometimes more frequently, and you can have your chance to win. Jay says he's a size double XL. So I want to start answering some of these questions that you guys might have. James says, how will AB5 affect drivers in other states? Will Uber and Lyft stop doing business in California? So the quick answer to that is, AB5 that says basically drivers in California are employees is supposed to go into effect January 1st, 2020. But Uber and Lyft and all these other companies have basically said, so what? We're not going to do anything different. So the short answer is nothing is going to change in the immediate future for drivers in California. And I think it's going to turn into a big, long legal battle. Why it's important for drivers in other states and other cities, though, is because or we're already seeing that a lot of other cities, a lot of other states are now looking at this AB5 legislation and looking at minimum wage rules. And so I think that they may and will try and go and enact similar legislation in their states potentially. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Jay says, how crazy is it that Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash have a new California ballot measure called Protect App-Based Drivers and Services Act? So we actually just did an article on this. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this ballot initiative that Uber and Lyft are putting forward, but basically they're looking to pay drivers a minimum wage that's based on your engaged time. So basically once you've accepted a trip, but we have a lot of problems with this, and we kind of calculated it that if you assume a driver, we kind of use San Francisco as an example since it's California, but if you assume a driver is engaged 2/3 of the time, which is pretty reasonable, I think, then it actually ends up that after you take into account expenses, you're actually getting paid less than minimum wage. So it's sort of like, I don't know, it's kind of like a typical sneaky Uber and Lyft initiative that sounds good on the surface, but then you start digging into it. It's like, oh, you get 120% of minimum wage, but it's only in engaged time. So I think there's a lot more negotiation and compromise that's going to happen there, but we'll definitely keep you guys updated on that. Chris says, I received an email from Lyft asking me to get the new guide to how driver pay works. Really, how much more simpler, watered down, and simplified can they maybe make this? Well, I know that some drivers, we did a video or two on this, but I know a lot of drivers were not happy that Lyft recently removed how much passengers are paying from the individual trip breakdown, and they now show what it, like kind of the overall take rate in their weekly statement. So I know that this is one that a lot of drivers were unhappy about, and I think we did a video. Joe on the Rideshare Guy YouTube channel did a video about this. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but you guys can probably go find that one if you're curious about learning more. Let's see. The Lyft jackets are awesome. Sabine says the Lyft jackets are awesome, but they really run big. Yeah, I think the Lyft, I think the Lyft, what do they call it? I guess they just call it the Lyft jackets that you get at for the milestones are pretty cool. I know a lot. I don't know if they're still giving out Lyft jackets. They started that program like 3 or 4 years ago. So I don't know if they're still giving them out, but it does seem like it's a nice little benefit. Okay, let's see if we can answer a couple more questions. Jeff says Uber and Lyft are going to ignore AB5 and let the courts sort it out, which will take months or years. And I think, frankly, I think you're right. I think that is what's going to happen. Chris says the jackets run big because they're anticipating the driver gaining a lot of weight. Well, that's why, if you guys watch, I think Jay did a good video on this and kind of staying healthy as a driver. I know it's easy to just sit there in between trips staring at your phone, but get out, stretch, do some lunges, get the blood flowing, right? You guys definitely, sitting in a car is not healthy, right? Like we talked about the safety issues of driving rideshare earlier, having to deal with passengers, but also just, being too sedentary, I think can be, pretty brutal on your health too. So definitely thank you for sharing that link, Jay. Definitely keep that in mind. Bits of Barrington says, I'm curious to know if Lyft is losing drivers after the rate cut. Yeah, so I know Lyft has been cutting rates in a bunch of places. We did some videos on that. William says, can I have, wow, you guys really like the shirts. All right, I think we found our new YouTube live giveaway. I think in the past we were doing hats, but it seems like you guys all love shirts. So stay tuned. In about 2 or 3 minutes, we'll do our giveaway. I won't leave you guys hanging too long. Sabine says 3,500 rides and counting, 3.5 years part-time, getting tired of all the mileage on my new car. Well, it was new at least. And yeah, I think that for a lot, especially if you're full-time, I think that a lot of drivers need to really understand how much it's costing you to, how many miles you're putting on your car. We just did an article or a video from Joe about why Business Insider is wrong about driving for Uber, because they did this big article about how much this guy was making, and they just like kind of glossed over expenses. And frankly, like the more you drive, probably the more you need to really think about your expenses and kind of compare it. Like, hey, how much is my car costing me per hour? Is it $4? Is it $6 per hour? Whatever it is. And, decide like, should I keep using my car? Should I go for a flexible rental like Fare or some other program, or, get a different car completely? So definitely keep that in mind. So hopefully I answered that question. Sabine says, what tax form is best to write off all those losses at the end of the year? Well, there's only one tax form that you can use. It's the Schedule C. We'll have a bunch of information on that. Jeff says, Trip, has it faded away? You know what? I haven't heard much about Trip, you guys. We did an article on them, and I told everyone that asked me about Trip, hey, it's a lot different starting, it's a lot different announcing a company and, like getting the hype built up than actually launching a company. It's pretty tough business, pretty tough endeavor. And so I'm not really sure what's going on with them. I hope that they make it, but I don't know. I haven't heard from them in a while, so it may not be looking too good. Charles says selective choosing of comments to talk about seems like abuse. I don't know if you're talking about me or Uber or Lyft, but feel free if I missed any questions, now's the time to ask them. We're coming on strong. We're coming to the end of the session. So I think we're still close to 100 people watching live, which is awesome. I appreciate each and every one of you who are joining me live. Tim says, good question about Trip. Hopefully that answered your question. Chris says, Trip ended up tripping too hard. Man, you guys are on it with the puns today. A lot of puns. Rideshare Lisa says, you skipped over my beacon light question. Well, I did answer a question about the new beacon, the new Uber beacon. You may have missed that, Lisa, but if not, feel free to ask that question now. Charles says, I don't understand how Uber can claim that a destination filter works for the driver. Well, I think actually destination filter is one of the, my my favorite feature that Uber has ever added for the drive, well, I guess there's tipping, but after tipping was the instant pay. I think instant pay was great for drivers, and then destination filter. I think at the end of the night in the past, I mean, you guys may have experienced, or maybe even still experience this today, is that, if you always take that one last ride, hoping to get a ride home, like in the past, you just had to hope. And then eventually you would have to drive home, usually empty handed, right? With the destination filter, at a minimum, it allows you to now get a ride home at the end of the night. And if you guys are really savvy, you can use those destination filters throughout the day. I actually did a really good podcast with Sergio, who's a surge only driver in Los Angeles. And he uses the destination filters throughout the day on both Uber and Lyft to kind of position himself and really get a high surge or high prime time, with the power, the personal power zone, even with the personal power zones or with the flat rate surge. So definitely you can take advantage of it that way. Jason says, why do drivers wait in the airport lots for hours to get an $8 trip? Well, to be honest, Jason, I think most of the times it doesn't make sense to wait in the airport lot. Now, if you get rematched with the passenger on your way out, okay, obviously that's a great thing. Take it. But most of the time, I would say that there are a lot of drivers waiting in queue at the airport lots, and it's not worth your time, especially here in LA, for example. You can just go to the neighbor, the areas right near the airport, and you don't have to wait at all and get a trip, right? And so you're sort of hoping for that long ride, right? If you're waiting for a potential like $40 ride, but you can go out and do 2 to 3, rides in between that, you can probably make more money doing that. But I think why drivers do wait in the lots is because, one, they don't know any better, and two, it's easy, right? You can just sit there doing nothing versus actually going to have to go out there and work. So that's what I think is happening there. Rideshare Lisa says, how do you get the new beacon light? So it's only available in a few select cities. Like, I'm pretty sure LA isn't one of the cities that it's being offered in. So you can't really get one until they say so. Let's see. What other questions did I miss? Oh, Creative says, when will the upstate New York drivers be able to thank you riders for tips? I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can get tips right now in upstate New York, but feel free to clarify that question. Latasha says, do drivers get to use $250 a week as a write-off? I'm assuming if you're using like a rental. So if you're renting a car, you can deduct that on your taxes as a weekly expense. If you're leasing a car, though, it's a little bit different, and you can actually use that car. You can take the standard mileage deduction if you're leasing a car, so it's a much better deal, tax-wise at least, that way. So, okay, hopefully that answered all of your questions. Steve says, oh, William with the super chat of $4.99. Awesome, I appreciate that, you guys. So let's see, anything that I missed? I think, I see a bunch of questions about Uber Beacon, the new Uber Beacon light. So it's only available in some cities. So if you guys haven't gotten one yet, it's probably because you're not in a city where it's available yet. But I suspect in about 3 to 6 months, probably everyone will start getting them or, have one by then. So appreciate each and every one of you guys for joining. Let's do the giveaway now before everyone logs off. I want to, so tonight I'll give away, let's do 3 t-shirts since you guys did a great job with me and asked a lot of good questions. And all you need to do to enter the contest is send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live. And why don't you let me know your number one strategy for, let's say, when your number one strategy for making more money, like what's something that you do that you think other people don't do? Is it you get up early and go do airport trips? Is it you drive surge on holidays? Whatever it is, something you think that's a little creative that maybe other people aren't doing. So let me repeat that. I'm going to give away 3 t-shirts tonight with the new t-shirts with a new logo. They're nice and soft, high quality. So all you need to do to enter is send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and let me know your number one tip for making more money, something that's kind of creative and thinking outside the box. If you are selected, we'll reply back to you and get your mailing address and t-shirt size and all of that good stuff. So I'm expecting at least 20 to 30 entries right now, because I see a lot of people talking about how they want a shirt. Most of the time, we don't actually get, most people are, I think, I tell them to email me to win in the giveaway, and no one actually emails me because you probably have other stuff going on. But if you guys want one of our new shirts, definitely email me to enter the giveaway. Let me type in my email right now, harry@therideshareguy.com, just like it sounds. So if you want to enter the giveaway, shoot me an email, subject line YouTube Live, and then let me know your number one tip for making more money as a driver, since I think that's what we all care about, right? Everyone wants to make more money. That's really what this channel is about, helping you succeed, helping you be happy. So with that being said, we're all the way up to 55 likes. I appreciate everyone who gave a like and who's subscribed to the channel. If this was your first time tuning in to one of our monthly YouTube lives, thank you very much for joining. We'll be back next month, and if there's breaking news, I'll probably hop on live to discuss it too, maybe even before then. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, definitely go ahead and do that now. And I'll really appreciate that. I'll answer one last question here as a bonus. Creative says, I saw on some Facebook groups that people have said they can now thank the rider for the tip they gave on the app. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't actually seen that. So Creative, if you want to shoot me an email with details on that, I can take a look or dig into that, but it sounds like a feature that they're testing or that they're piloting. That does sound kind of cool. Raymond says, just do twice a month YouTube lives. I'm down for that. So maybe I'll be back in 2 weeks and we can chat more. All right. Take care. And if you guys want to enter the contest, go to send me that email, harry@therideshareguy.com. William says, can we buy your shirts if we don't win? Yes, they are on Amazon. I'll have that for you guys next month, or we can also email it to you. We don't really make any money off the shirts, but if you guys want to support the site, that's always appreciated. All right, take care, everyone.